I was about 8 and my dad got me a little Victorinox Swiss Army knife. It was a camo pattern one. It had the tweezers, the toothpick, 2 blades, all that sort of jazz. I called it Mule, and I had that knife for years. There was a bloke in Salamanca. He used to set up at the Salamanca market. I remember going along there when I was like 12 and just watching him. And one day I said to him, do you need a hand in the workshop or anything? Could I help? So I was, pumping the bellows. I'd go to his workshop and just hold stuff for him while he punched holes, and was just basically a little blacksmith's apprentice. I did that for 6 months or so. And I've always sort of dabbled in it, but straight after high school I joined the army and deployed when I was like 19 to the Solomon Islands. Yeah, it's just sort of dropped off for a while there, and now I've got the sort of space and time to do it. It's really picking back up again. G'day, I'm Tom Mellick. A lot of people just call me Mellick. I live on 24 acres of bushland in Gardiner's Bay, Tasmania, with my wife Samantha and my daughter Constance. And I make knives, sharpen knives, and restore old tools as a hobby. Knife making, it depends if you are good at listening. If you're good at listening, which I'm not, it can be quite easy, because they're basically the steps to making a knife are design, then forge or stock remove, which is 2 different methods, either grinding it to shape or forging it to shape, and then pick a handle, secure the handle, finish the handle, and sharpen. Each step is reasonably straightforward. There are a lot of things that you learn as you go in terms of correct angles, where the best position, how to hold your body when you're grinding. There's a lot of really subtle nuances to it. But as far as making a functional knife that doesn't feel completely horrible to hold, yeah, it might still look handmade, but you can make a perfectly functional knife in a day if you have all of the equipment and some know-how. It is very doable. It will be rough. It probably won't look all that aesthetically pleasing, but it'll be sharp, it'll be heat treated, and it'll last a long time if you take care of it. I do get a lot of inspiration from mainly tumble down sheds and things like that around the place. When Samantha and I, or Sammy and I, are driving along, and I'm always constantly pointing out, look at that, look at that shed. I want to go in there and see what's in there. I wonder if there's any tools in there.
So most of the knives that I've finished have either sold or given away, but these are all out of my box of, wouldn't say failures, box of learning really. It's one of the first knives I tried forging. It's bent, it's too fat in the wrong places, it's too thin in the wrong places. It was a bit of a do-over. One of the first knives I started forging, that's made from an old railway spike. I sort of got the basic shape happening, but didn't have a very good forge, couldn't really get it hot enough, didn't really know much about it. So, that one's very savable. I'm going to stick that over in the continue pile. It's a long journey, long journey learning to make knives. You make a lot of mistakes, but the old saying is, knife makers don't make mistakes, they just make smaller knives.
With the spanner that we forged the other night into a knife, my main motivation for using that particular spanner was that it had Made in Germany stamped on it, up one end. And I always like to keep little features like that where it was made, or a company name. First thing we did was we actually hot cut the end of it.
Easy as that.
So once that was done, the next step was to pop it back in the fire and actually bring the edge of the blade down and thin the steel out. And basically, steel's like Play-Doh when it's hot, not quite as soft, but wherever you smush it, it's going to go away from your hammer. So just by controlling the hammer blows and the angle that I was holding the steel with the tongs, that sort of dictated where the steel was going to go and the way that I struck it. The next thing we did was actually bring that blade and widen that blade out, and also fine it down to more of an edge. So once we got it on the grinder, it would be a lot quicker to actually put an edge on it. Once we're happy with the shape, it was then back into the fire 3 or 4 times to normalise it and relax the steel structure. After that's all done, we brought it up to non-magnetic heat, so tapped it on a magnet to make sure it didn't stick, and poof, in the oil it went. That then compresses this now, what was a very relaxed grain structure, into a much tighter grain structure and hardens the steel. As far as knives go, I've probably completed about 7 or 8 knives from start to finish, actual finished products. Most of them I've given away to friends, or lost, or a few I've sold a few, like maybe 2 knives I've actually sold. I mostly just make them for me, so if I need a knife to dig around in the garden with, I'll spend 20 minutes and grind a bit of steel sharp and heat treat it and whack a pine handle on it just to use as a utility knife. I really enjoy making tools and knives.
By the time you've done that, you should, in theory, have a razor sharp edge.